I did want to ask you, like, sort of what goes into actually making a distribution based on Arch. Like, what do you? I have no idea what you'd even need to do this.
You don't need anything, basically. You just need the right script
Mm-hmm.
that builds the ISO, which in my case is ALCI.
Mm-hmm.
But what it uses, you need the Arch ISO, which is
Yep.
shipped on Arch by default. So it uses that
Mm-hmm.
to build the ISO. There is a guide on the Arch website on how to build the ISO yourself. You just change the packages that are in the package x86-64 to suit your needs, and that's it. But if you want to go add a desktop environment and stuff like that, you have to ship your own default configurations. For me, it took me about 9 days to figure out which files I needed for KDE. I ended up with around 600 different configuration files. But yeah, and the tool that helps a lot is the way things go is I install Arch with the desktop environment of choice. In my case, is KDE.
Yep.
Create a backup of the .config and .local folders. I just right-click, duplicate here. Start modifying, and then I use a tool called Meld to compare what changed in what file, and I just ship those modified files with the modifications as a package.
Right.
On the ISO, and there's a script called Skel. The job of Skel is to copy anything in etc Skel to the user's home directory during install. That's it.
Okay.
It's very simple. It's not very difficult. It's just once you have the right configuration files in the package, you just tell it to move it to the user's home directory, and the desktop environment is going to use those configuration files instead of the default ones. That's it. That's what XeroLinux does. I just ship the configure like with my rice. Since XeroLinux is also about the eye candy.
Yeah.
I create my own rice. I have 5 different rices that I will offer in the next release in the tool. Like MacLeod. I don't know if you know MacLeod. They have this tool with thumbnails of the different looks. You click apply, and it will apply this new look layout, basically. Same thing will happen with XeroLinux, except mine will do more things behind the scene. That's why it requires a reboot.
Yeah.
But that's what XeroLinux does. It just ships with customized configuration files that apply to the system during install. That's it. I just add the KDE packages in the package file to tell the ISO to use KDE, and that's it. So what you see during the live ISO that you boot, that's your future system.
Yep.
And I use Calamares because it's super easy. Super easy. Just next. So yeah, that's it. It's not very difficult. Once you got the script that creates the ISO, you're done. You just modify the packages file and you're done. That's it.
I didn't think it was that easy.
It is easy. It's super easy. If people think it's hard, I have a guide on my forum on how to do that. You just git clone my repository, packages file, remove KDE, put GNOME packages instead. Done. You have XeroLinux GNOME edition.
Huh.
It's very simple. It's very, very, very simple. People think it's hard, but it's not.
I should get around to doing that, to be honest. Like, it sounds like a fun little experiment, at least.
Yeah, you could build your own. It's like on MX Linux. You have the ISO thing that you install your system, you set it up the way you want, and you build an ISO out of it.
Yep.
So using rsync and stuff like that. Same idea. So you just ship, instead of creating a package, because there's the option, I selected to do it as a package, but all you need to do is put your home files like .config, .local, KDE4 in case of KDE. You put those in this etc Scal folder, and it will include on the ISO, and it will ship it on the ISO. In your case, I think which window manager do you use?
I'm using Awesome right now.
Okay, so you include your awesome dot files in the etc folder, and it's going to copy them over to the future system. Done deal. So if you want, you can look at the guide on my.
Yeah, I have XFD on do that. Because I know a lot of people out there will do things like they'll make install scripts, like a post install script for their system. That
DTOS,
yeah.
DTOS style.
Or like labs that Luke was doing a while back. That like doing it through a custom ISO honestly seems like it might be a little bit easier.
It is easier because you tell the packages file what packages to include.
Mm-hmm.
You can include Kden Live. You can include whatever you want. If you're not going to share the ISO, it doesn't matter if it's a 6 gig ISO.
Yeah.
For you just put it on the side, and whenever you want to install, you know that it's going to install everything you need.
Mm-hmm.
You use. This is how XeroLinux started. I wanted to include everything I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I don't use any Office suites or anything. I use Notepad. So I didn't need to include a lot. For my use, I just needed Vivaldi. I just needed Discord,
mm-hmm.
and that's it. So that's what I included on the ISO.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I started modifying a little bit and a little more and a little more and a little more. And I said, well, I can customize even KDE. I can ship it with the look and feel that I want.
And then you gave yourself a ton of extra work.
It's not work anymore. At first it was, yeah. It took me 9 days to figure things out. But after that, it just takes me half an hour to figure things out. Because I have a base. I have a solid base to do. So I use a pre-existing rice. Mm-hmm. I modify things around, and I meld, and then take the files that I need, and that's it. Done deal. But the problem with shipping rices like that, they're not universal. This is another thing I wanted to mention to users, because they come to me, they're telling me, I applied your rice, but I don't see the wallpaper that shipped with the rice on my system. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I built it on my own system. Mm-hmm. So my system is using 3 monitors, 2 HDMI and 1 DisplayPort. Yours might be using DVI or VGA, God forbid. We still use VGA these days. But the connections are different. Mm-hmm. So unless it's hard, I code in C++, as Nicolo Venerandi says, unless I build a theme from the ground up, I cannot hard code the wallpaper into it. So I can just use a configuration file inside the .config that tells the system to apply to my monitors a wallpaper. Yeah. But your monitors are set up differently, so you're going to end up with no wallpaper, or you're going to end up with the default KDE wallpaper. So you just right-click, change wallpaper, apply the wallpaper that shipped with the rice. It's like a 2-second job. People want support for these kind of things. They don't know how to right-click, change a wallpaper. and now KDE even spoon feeds how to change the resolution. Right-click, change display settings. You no longer have to go to settings and hunt for the display settings and stuff like that. So I'm like, I can do what I can do on my system. If it doesn't work on your system, that means your system is different. So just do the necessary to adapt it to your system. Simple. I only have one big system. All the other systems are from 2012, 2015. So
yeah, that's fair.
So I can only build on that system. It's gonna be different than yours. It's 100% confirmed. But things like that.
I get it with problems like that. Like that's such a simple thing that if it doesn't work properly, like I wouldn't even go out of my way to ask someone about it. Like, oh, the wallpaper just didn't work properly. Sure, that's fine. Whatever.
Like for example, with the latest Plasma 525, which is at second point release, and the third one coming soon. The floating panel. I talked to Nicolo. I was like, when I maximize the windows, the floating panel is gaining 200 pounds. So it's becoming twice as thick. Mm-hmm. He was like, it's by design. Because, and now I understand what he meant by design. There's a lot of work that goes into it, like related to the shadows and stuff like that. He had no choice. He had no choice. I asked him, why don't you make it go back to normal? Mm-hmm. He was like, if I make it go back to normal, he had issues with making it go back to floating. So he used the shadow instead. But now it's like, on your screen is this thick. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay. So I replaced it with Latte panel. Mm-hmm. Quite simple solution. So, and Latte just announced that do not use the stable version with 525, use the Git version.
Right.
It's in August, it will ship as 0.11. So stable version, which is compatible with 525, but for now use the Git. So I updated all my RICEs to use the Git version. I follow the workflow, and the nice thing about making my RICEs into scripts is I can modify them at any time, and you don't need to reinstall. And that's another thing. XeroLinux, with every new release, will never require a fresh install.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm aiming at. Never require a fresh install. You'll be offered the changes with my tool. If you want them, okay. If you don't want them, just don't use them. Just keep using the system. Because XeroLinux is a hobby distro, as you read earlier. So I can do it for a certain period of time, but everything has a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
So there will come a time where I can no longer maintain the project. It will still be there on GitHub. It will be there for anyone to fork and anything. I would just archive it and let anyone who wants to pick it up and figure out how to do things. I'm not going to even teach those people how to do things because it takes too long. And I got my own methods, and they might agree, they might disagree. I'm just going to leave it out there. Whoever wants to pick it up, they can pick it up. The website will still remain online. Everything will remain online.